All right, guys. So this is gonna be our podcast. I'm James. We got our guest Kento, and also my good friend Seyoon. Seyoon and I are both powerlifters, and we are both in the 83 kilogram, 183 pound weight class.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And so today we are joined by our guest Kento, who is a physical therapist, amazing guy, and we will be going over recovery, prehab, rehab, injury prevention, and all of that. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, Seyoon, you can go first.
All right, I'm Seyoon. Like James said, I'm a 83 kg powerlifter. My lifts, the most I've squatted in competition was 600, benched 369, and deadlifted 639. So I'd say, and I currently coach people online and in person. And yeah, that's about it. Kento?
My name is Kento. I'm a physical therapist. I weigh probably 70 kilos. I don't do any of the heavy lifting that you guys do. So I'm not going to put out any numbers right now because it's just embarrassing on my end. But I'm in New York City. I teach anatomy and kinesiology at a PT university, and I also teach movement seminars for PT professionally on the weekends. So I work with a lot of lifters. I work with a lot of CrossFit athletes, a lot of athletes, so I'm pretty excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're both
thanks.
very grateful that you could come and do this with us. So I think, Seyoon, you have a couple general questions lined up for Kento.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we don't know how to discern between an injury and just a bad day. So how would you define an injury?
I mean, that's one of the hardest things, right? Nowadays, even in the PT or fitness world, they say if you have pain, you should immediately think it's something you shouldn't work on and just refer out. The hardest part, if you actually go into pain science a little bit more, and you guys probably know it as a powerlifter, when you have pain, sometimes you don't really know either. It's like, Is it going to be okay? So you kind of try another one and see if it increases. So whenever I tell my patients or like any of my friends or powerlifters, I say, if it hurts for that moment, see if you can walk it off. But if it happens again or like 2 or 3 times, you probably want to stop for that moment and see how that goes. I mean, there's a common injury. There's common ones where it's like if you have some kind of bruise going on, you had something that hit you that hurts it, that made it injured. Those are obvious injuries.
Right.
The hardest ones are when you actually are lifting and you suddenly have that little tweak. And you're not sure what really happened. So for me, like if that pain or that sensation continues for a little while, that's when you probably want to say, hey, you should stop. It's not an easy one. That's a very gray thing. When you said that before the show, I'm like, oh, shit. I got some explaining to do.
Yeah, because I know that some people, when they feel something, even just a little bit, they just stop and don't even consider maybe I wasn't warmed up enough. Maybe it's just a cold day, so I'm just feeling achy, or your old injury's coming back, or we don't know what to do. So I guess the best thing for us to do as specifically powerlifters and lifters in general is just try to hit it again, maybe lesser weight, less percentage, and see how that feels.
Yeah. I mean, if I can go on a little bit about pain, a lot of people don't realize that pain is really from like whatever information that went through the brain. It's a result of what your brain perceived that what the threat was. So sometimes with individuals like you said about old injuries, you might still have aches and pains even though everything is healed up. So because it's an output from the brain, and because you had some injuries from the past, that part of the brain that it represents, let's say for the shoulder, is bunched up. So it's not as accurate as you think it is.
Okay.
So that's where I'm, whenever I say, when people say injury, you wouldn't know until you did a couple more times. Unless it's lifting, when lifting, you just know that when you tweak it, I'm like, maybe something. But when you just fix, like James always told me, it's like when I kind of rotate in a little bit, it was fine. Then you might be okay, because it could be just mechanical load, vector load issues that make that brain goes, hey, change it up. This might be fine.
So it can be that because of the old injury, you're not able to utilize it a lot more.
Yeah.
You're not able to consciously put more weight on it because you're just scared, or there's just your brain is receiving information that's saying, okay, that was an old injury. I don't want you to use it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's a huge, especially if you have old injuries. It's really about what has happened in the past and how it's processing that information when things happen there.
Okay. And so when would you recommend to seek medical help, or not medical, I'm sorry, professional help?
It's a great question. I mean, if there's pain that doesn't kind of go away, let's say it's an inflammatory thing and you just kind of rest it up for a couple of days and it doesn't go away, I would definitely go for medical help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any kind of chronic stuff that you've been working on, especially with any kind of high intensity lifters, if you got some stuff that's been kind of chronically going on, even if it's like a little bit of shoulder stuff, it's probably a good idea to look at a movement therapist.
Okay.
Just because you're going to keep going. You're going to keep going with weights. You're going to keep going with that. So just getting someone to talk to and say, hey, this is what I'm going on. Do I need to see someone? And I'm usually better when there's much more specifics.
Right.
But if you're having more for a prolonged period of time, let's say even 2 weeks or so, it's probably a good idea to kind of nip it in the bud.
Wow, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. That's
Yeah.
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say 2 weeks. I mean, you can go as early as 2 days. Because you're looking for that inflammatory states to be gone. So we're talking about 48 to 72 hours. So that's the case, but if not, where I see people is around 1 to 2 weeks after.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people see the doctor first, or like maybe their athletic trainer first. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like what you're saying is a perfect example would be me, since I recently did get an injury.
Yes.
So I guess what's a common theme, I guess not just for me, but everyone, correct me if I'm wrong, is there's always compensations happening.
Always.
Something happens for whatever reason, so the body decides, hey, in order to keep you running normally, we're going to make, the lat shut down, and we're going to have, your tricep do the extra work instead. And generally, a cause for that I've seen is elbow pain. A lot of people have elbow pain for
sure.
benching or holding the bar in a low bar squat position and whatnot. In my recent case, I had a hyperactive quad and an underactive glute, and it was on the same side, so poor hip. As I could quote my therapist, Ty here, he told me, what a poor hip to have to deal with this. And so I did have pain out of nowhere. One day I was just squatting and thought, ow, my kind of the IT band, but also upper quad area was hurting. And I kind of wrote it off. And then after a while, I was like, something feels different. I did a quick little test for myself. I tried standing on my right leg alone, and everything felt solid. Then I did it to my left leg, and things didn't feel so solid, felt a little wobbly. And then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to assume that it's an underactive glute, which ended up being correct. And I tried working on it, tried doing activation exercises and whatnot by myself, tried to do some trigger point therapy from the little book that I have. And in the end, I thought I fixed it because everything was getting better. The pain was going to go away, even though I was continuing to squat in increased intensity. And unfortunately for me, I guess I didn't fix it because I'm sure anyone who follows me on Instagram can see the recent video.
Actually, it's not fun.
I mean, fourth set too. It's just like deep into the workout, and then I hit that rep. I come up, everything seems to be fine. Very minor degradations in form. And in my head, as I hit that position, I could hear things tearing, and I thought, crap, this is bad. And I dump the bar, I break a bar, I break everything, I fall over, I'm in pain. Luckily, it wasn't actual muscle fiber tearing, it was just connective tissue tearing. But that would be something that I would also say is that I guess that pain had been going on for about a week. And so I think that's a pretty good sign that something is actually wrong. It's not just an off day. And I think it's pretty, it can be pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess tricky, because in overall performance, I didn't suffer anywhere. My bench was going
Right.
up, squat was going up, deadlift was going up. And in fact, if anything, my squat was going up a lot faster than
Exponentially,
expected.
yeah.
I was
Wow.
getting strength gains that were just phenomenal, and things were feeling great. And then just out of nowhere like that, when things felt like it was getting better too. So I feel like that's a little odd and can be a little, I guess, tricky with the whole body, is that you can feel great, but that there might be an underlying issue that will pop up whenever it wants to. And I feel like for someone who doesn't go up, have as much intensity, so I mean, if your day-to-day life revolves around, I guess, a lot of low intensity training, then maybe those issues won't really show themselves. But once you start increasing intensity, that's when real issues could actually pop up, like myself. And I just feel blessed that the injury that I did incur was only some connective tissue tearing. And this is about 6 days since the injury. And today I can body weight squat and squat about 135 pain-free. I can deadlift and bench just fine. I can still feel some residual pain, and whether or not that's, like you're saying, is just my brain having that leftover pain response there, or if it's or if it's still recovering, I still want to give it an extra week before I decide to put some heavy weight on my back and squat.
Right. I mean, that's where the difference between it's an actual tissue or a trauma into the tissue, right? If that's the case, you want to and let's say it's actually a connective tissue tear that you've gone through, that inflammatory stage is going on, you want to go through the tissue healing stages, if that's the case. And you're looking probably 4 to 6 weeks for the full recovery, if that's the case. Right? Because you're slowly coming back, which is not a bad thing. But if that's the case... Sorry, James. But let's be real a little bit. But if it's actually, let's say you come to me before and say like, oh, I have like more back pain today, right? That's, it's likely not much of a connective tissue tear or some kind of trauma, right? It could be because how your muscle patterns or brain patterns or neural pathway pattern has put you to compress or feel that side more.
Yeah.
And if I just change that neural pathway, it might be a quick fix. Because there's nothing really that was torn or anything of that nature where the inflammatory stage has to go through.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that differences that at least for me, to understand where this is coming from. Like for your case, because you had a tissue injury, even if it's connective tissue, I want to make sure you are able to heal that up while still correct your, let's say, imbalances that made that connective tissue go.
Yeah, of course. I just remembered you're also saying about the whole, you could be completely healed but still have pain from the same area.
Yeah.
I think a prime example was a while ago, I had a small tweak in my lower back, and then that tweak the following day was pretty bad. It wasn't completely debilitating, but it was painful enough where I couldn't have any axial load, but I could continue to deadlift and bench pretty much without a problem.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
But it was just that axial load that I just couldn't take. And so I went and saw Celio here, and he worked on me. And whereas before I couldn't, it was on the right side, so I couldn't bring my right leg up to my chest, whether I was laying on the ground or standing up. Once it started getting to the point where my lower back would have to start coming under and start stretching, the pain response was immense. I just couldn't. I could bring my leg to maybe a 90-degree angle to bring my femur parallel to the floor, and then that was about it. I just couldn't bring it any farther. After he worked on me, I regained full range of motion. Everything was fine. A couple more days of his prescribed corrective exercises and whatnot, and I felt amazing. But what I found odd was I could squat 500 plus pounds continuously, or deadlift or whatever it was, but there was always just a bit of residual pain. I can feel it even if I'm laying in bed and I turn my legs over or have any type of rotation. I can feel it. It's not a pain that makes me stop. It's definitely just kind of there, but I thought it was just odd because I'm pretty confident I'm fully recovered, that there is no more issue in that area, but there's still that pain. And I had always thought that was interesting, and I just found that out now. It's really cool that, or unfortunate, however you want to look at it, that you can be,
that's all good.
Yeah, you can be 100%, but there can still be, you can still expect to find some pain there.
Yeah.
So I guess that's weird how pain can mean something's wrong, or pain can mean nothing's wrong. It's just your brain still has, I don't know the vocabulary for it, but your brain is still perceiving that pain there despite nothing really being wrong in that area.
Yeah. Do you mind? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
stop
go ahead.
there.
Right.
Yeah, so like going back into the pain thought process, I love how you just expanded that. Is when you have injury, it doesn't mean that you might have pain as well, and vice versa, right? So you might have injury that's healed up, but you still have pain. And you kind of said like you might not have nothing wrong with this area. I'm just using this shoulder as an example, but the brain perceives it as a threat, so you will give that sensation of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where, for me, my thought process is it really more priority the bigger elephant? Is it more in here? Is it more the fear and experience and all that? Or there's nothing going on here, but mechanically something might be off this way.
Okay.
And for some reason, this still has that mechanical load that the body does not, or the brain does not favor yet. But there's nothing going on anymore, meaning like a tissue injury anymore.
Yeah.
Or a compression anymore, but there's something going on that doesn't want to let go.
Of course, yeah.
Doesn't want to let go. So, when it comes to pain, there's so much variables to it. But those are certain things I think about.
Okay.
Actually,
No, go ahead, Seyoon.
you guys brought up a good point on activation of muscles, activation of certain areas, and under-activation of certain areas. And
for sure.
Recently on Instagram, I've seen a lot of pictures of just a glute or two glutes that is red, and it's talking about like how it's not activated or something like that. And that's the biggest misunderstanding of 2016. What are your thoughts on that?
Are you talking to me specifically?
Oh yeah, I'm looking at you, but yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, Kento.
No, not at all. I think it's interesting. I mean, I must say I'm guilty for that. I think probably several years ago, I was like, hey, your glute's not firing. But the thing is, like, whenever we're squatting or anything, we're still activating that glute regardless of what it is. So your glutes are still activating. So I think it's more the fact it's like lack of clarification. That's more the case. Like, the glute max, let's say the glute max itself, it's a triplanar muscle. It can go sagittal plane, it can go frontal plane, it can go transverse plane. So you can almost say, hey, maybe what's not working is the glute into a transverse plane motion or sagittal plane motion.
Okay.
Or frontal plane. So, those kind of pictures still get a lot of press.
Right.
It's so great. But to me, it's like, yeah, maybe the glute max is still not firing as well, but in what context? I think that's a big thing.
I agree because let's say I'm doing a very sub-maximal weight, like a 60% of my 1 rep max on the squat. I'll feel it moving and I'll feel it burn a lot when I'm squatting. But as I get up to a more maximal weight, like 90% or even 100%, my squats would just turn into a good morning. And I would use all the quad strength I have. All my hamstrings would take all the load, and my erectors would take all the load. And I think that's what people are misunderstanding, that it still fires. It's just it may be weaker than your other muscles, and maybe the other muscles are compensating for its weakness. And in the past, I actually had my erectors were overdeveloped because my hips were weak and my quads are so strong. Yeah,
for sure.
I think we just need to look at it at a different angle instead of saying it's not firing or it's not activated. It's just weak. You just gotta strengthen it. You just gotta move it. Any thoughts?
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. It's more in lines of coordination to me. How is it working together? When you have like let's say 1 rep max or a back squat, you still need a lot of muscles activated. And your glutes are obviously firing. It's more about how well it's opposing each other.
Right.
When you have a back squat, the bar is going to bring you forward like crazy. So your back, let's say your hamstrings are not strong, well, not opposing things well, or your glutes not opposing well, your back's going to compensate to get it somehow.
Right.
Because your brain only knows, I'm going to bring that weight up.
Mm-hmm.
So if one vector is off, or let's say one coordination is off, you're going to use whatever it takes to get up.
Mhm.
Right. So this is where like coordination comes into play. Maybe it's a strength issue. I always more think of that a neural frequency, or how much neurological activation is going to that muscle. I'm not even sure if I say weakness as much anymore.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm thinking James knows what I'm talking about, because it's more about, I never say a person's weak. There's a time I would say that it might, when it's like atrophy, the muscle is actually atrophy, that might be a weakness. But for most people, I don't consider it weak. It's more about a difference in signal. Like, where's the volume too high or too low in the muscles?
Yeah, that's a totally different way to put it. Yeah.
I think, well, when I saw Ty recently, he also went over kind of like how Instagram or social media these days, you always see people saying, or even on the street, you can ask someone, they'll be like, oh, I found out this is underactive, and this is hyperactive, and this is such and such, and this is whatever. And he said, I mean, the number one question you should be asking that person is, that's great. That's a good hypothesis, but did you test it? Is that actually true? And that kind of hit me, because I was very guilty of that. Very often, once I started seeing NKT practitioners, I would all of a sudden be like, oh, this is off, and so it must be because this is hyperactive and this is underactive and whatever. And in my head, maybe sometimes I'm right, and the person could be right without even testing it. I mean, could guess. It's like flipping a coin. But I feel like testing it is also a good representation of it not being necessarily weak, but the brain just isn't communicating as well or properly with that muscle anymore. Whenever Ty would test me, when he goes to test the muscle in different ranges of motions, in different planes of motion, he would just say, in one plane of motion, my glute might be powerful and be doing everything it's supposed to. It'll meet his resistance just fine. But then he'll move into a different plane, and all of a sudden, I'm telling my brain, push, and there's nothing. And then all of a sudden, I feel another muscle say, whoa, glute, where are you? I'm going to do this instead. And all of a sudden, I feel my hamstring, or I feel my quad, or something fire and go ahead and push. And it doesn't do as good of a job. And Ty realizes that. He can see, like, oh, it looks like your quad wants to do something when this should be your glute doing the work instead. And I think that's... I think also some people find it as, oh, well, why is the body doing this? Why is it being, you could say, dumb? Why is it doing these things that get you hurt? And I think people need to realize that the body is miraculous and absolutely stunning in that it can do this to help you keep moving. Its purpose is that it doesn't know that you'll be fine if you fail this squat because whatever muscle group isn't there properly. And so it just thinks that maybe if I fail this, I'm going to die. And so it sends and says, hey, hamstring, we need you to do a little bit more work than usual. And then it goes ahead and does it. And at the moment, it worked perfectly. You get your rep or whatever it is. Yep. But there's an underlying issue. And I feel like a lot of times these days, people ignore this. They see this simple, quick fix that the body might have done. They either aren't cognizant of it at all, or if they are, they think it's fine, it's okay, it's something that's going to happen, and I just need to deal with it. And I guess I'm guilty of this too. Part of it is cost. Seeing a therapist all the time isn't exactly the cheapest thing in the world.
Right.
And as a college student, money is definitely not something that I have in abundance at the time. If it was a perfect world, I'd have someone like Kento with me 24/7. Be like, what's wrong with me? I stood up.
Awesome.
I was sitting on the toilet to take a dump, and I stood up crooked. And what's wrong with me? Why did it feel this way? I was
your poop.
Yeah, I was eating my rice, and my forearm seized up, and I dropped my spoon. Like, what do I do? Or my chopsticks. And so.
That's some serious stuff right there.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that that's the case, but I feel like people, at least, that's the hope that this video will help bring more, bring the spotlight into recovery, and not necessarily just recovery, but also prevention, because all too many times I have heard people in the gym or around at meets, wherever, where people know that they have an injury or they know that something is wrong, but they write it off saying that seeing a therapist isn't worth it. It won't fix it. And then I see the same person months down the road, same problem, same issue. They're like, oh, but I made a 5-pound PR. I'm like, congrats on the 5-pound progress in months.
Right, from 225 to 230.
Yeah, like good job, bravo to you. And mind you, this person would say, yeah, I know, my hip was killing me, but I pushed through. And I'm thinking in my head, how long will that hip last before it's not just killing you and you hear a snap and you fall over and you go to the doctor and they say, hey, this and this all tore completely. Right. You are looking at years of recovery. No amount of human, HGH or whatever in the world will save you now. Like, you're just screwed forever.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're hoping that this video might bring to light. And kind of went off a tangent. I don't even remember. It's so bad that I can't even remember
my actually brought up
my initial topic.
A great point about injury prevention and lifting healthy in general, because for me specifically, in the past, every time I would lift, I would feel something's wrong, something's tight. I would feel pain in certain areas every time I squat, bench, and deadlift, but I would just push through it, and ultimately it led me to this AC joint injury. I've had hip impingements, and I couldn't even squat. I've had lower back strains. All these crazy things happen, and I think right now is the first time in many years that I've lifted that I'm able to squat without any pain whatsoever.
Oh, that's awesome.
Even at maximal weight, I don't feel any pain. I mean, of course, it's because of all the time I put into my mobility, trying to fix things, working on my bar path, working on my motor patterns, and etc. But the biggest thing that we need to focus on is prehab. And it's been on the rise recently. I followed these guys on IG called Prehab Guys, and they provide a lot of good information.
Yeah.
Kento, for you, what's, I guess, number one tip for any athlete for injury prevention? Number one. I know there's so many, and there's so many different injuries. But
jeez, man, that's a tough freaking thing. Yeah. Of course you have to do that.
I'll up the stakes, too. Kento, you have to say it in one word.
Whoa!
No, I'm kidding.
No, I got you. I would say breath.
Breath.
Yeah, you got to train that breath, because the more what happens a lot, what I see. Is it okay if I expand on this?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. Okay.
We'll give you
all right, so not too bad. So one big thing for me is when I see let's say the conventional lifter, or anyone really that goes into powerlifting, CrossFitters, anything of that nature, because of the intensity that goes through, we tend to, like you said, like you get a lot of back tightness, right? So what happens is that the rib actually starts to flare in the front.
Okay.
So what happens is the muscles, let's say the abs, this is just very general example, so not everyone should do it, but it's very common. The abdominal muscles in the front starts to get stretched out very often.
Right.
Right, because what a lot of us hear, or at least I hear, is they get the intra-abdominal pressure as much as possible, and then go from there. And let's say you're injured, let's say you're tired, the breath will start going up this way. Even though they try to do the ab. But because it's ab, the ab just stretches and the back muscle stays constrained. It's not a 360 breath.
Okay.
So what happens is the abdominals gets really, really eccentrically loaded too long for too often. So think about a rubber band that's always stretched out. It's going to start losing tension. So what I tell a lot of the lifters, anything of the nature, to do is learn how to exhale like crazy first to get the rib down. Get that rib down and then inhale 360. Start practicing that, because you need to learn how to exhale with your oblique system, your transverse abdominis, because that is the stabilizer before anything happens. So for me, I see because back pain is very, very common. Back pain, knee pain, right, shoulder, those are very common in the lifting community, and very often I have to start with that because they're so here they're so here. I need to get them to make sure you get that 360 stability, not front only,
Right.
or back tightness, really.
Yeah, even apart from getting in that 360 that you were talking about, I think people just don't know how to breathe in general. I know
For sure.
before we even started talking about or started filming this podcast, we were talking, and you know how I mentioned singing really helped me breathe and expand my stomach. Because of that, I'm able to breathe and fill up my belt whenever I use it, and properly engage my core. And I don't think everybody knows how to do that. I don't think anyone that used to live a sedentary lifestyle, just sit on their butts all day, office work or whatnot, and then they recently started working out. I don't know if they actually know how to engage their core through that.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I see that all the time.
I guess I also want to make a point for people watching this. It's as Kento mentioned, through the 360 breathing, and I was a client of Kento's, and so I just want people to know how difficult it will be, even for me, who I'd consider a very active person. I've been doing sports of some sort pretty much my entire life, ever since I could walk.
Mm.
For the life of me, even today, Kento, I hope you're proud, I still practice. I still don't think I can 360 breathe.
Oh, it's tough.
100% of the time, even 90, like I'm probably still getting D's in that remark if I do them out of 10. If I got a set of 10 of trying to do perfect 360 breaths, no matter how hard I concentrate, there are several times where I can feel it and I'm like, that was wrong. That was horrible.
Yeah.
And like Seyoon was saying, my girlfriend, I noticed that she's very up here when she breathes. It's all very just in the chest breathing, and I see that just not even in her, in common people that I see, if I just observe and I watch them breathe, it's all up here, very short, quick breaths, and as I've heard, that is a byproduct of kind of like a high-stress environment, also people not being cognizant of how to deeply breathe, whether that be belly breathing or the 360 breathing. And I want people to know that 360 breathing, again, I just want to emphasize, it is far from an easy task.
Right.
You could practice it day and night, and I've been practicing this for almost a year now. And
Oh yeah.
it is, to this day, still tough. But I will say that, especially for someone like me, I probably have experienced some sort of abdominal stretching, and I can feel it when I do an actual 360 breath. I can feel my back for the first time freaking out, like, what's going on? We're stretching for once.
Right.
You know, my abs are like, whatever, you know, they stretch like they normally do, and then my back does it too, and it's, I guess in a way, it feels really nice. It feels great to breathe correctly. Kind of like the first time when I saw Ty here, and you know, I'll put both Kento's and Ty's information in the description. When he taught me belly breathing, which is the first time, you know, he was bringing me back down to basics. He said, people these days think that, you know, they're great athletes, but then I asked them to crawl on the ground, or I asked them to roll over. I asked them to walk. I asked them to breathe. You know, these are all simple things that people say, yeah, I know how to do that. And he says they don't have a clue. You know, you get a toddler and you put it on the ground and ask it to roll over, and it does it, what he would say is miraculous form to roll over. And he says you ask a person to do it, they're doing all this weird stuff trying to roll over, you know, like flailing their arms around, completely wrong. And breathing was a huge thing. Breathing and walking were the two things that I'm glad that I was able to be more cognizant about. Every day when I walk, I think about walking correctly. When I'm breathing, I often catch myself sometimes breathing into my chest. I'm thinking that's wrong. And I get, what's a lot easier is to just do belly breathing. And that feels leagues better than breathing into your chest. Getting those nice deep breaths all the way down feels great. So, yeah, I think also is like in recent days, people seem to, I don't know, people look at me crazy when I tell them, you know, you're probably walking, you might be walking wrong. You might be breathing wrong, and they're like, what are you talking about? I've been walking and breathing my entire life. I'm like, that doesn't necessarily mean you've been doing it right your entire life either. I could do math my entire life, and I could be doing it horribly. I could be doing it wrong. So I think it'd be nice if people start to realize that as we grow up, we have issues that arise. That's also something Kento had pointed out to me in email in the past, because I was getting frustrated with my own body, thinking, why is my stupid body breaking down constantly, like a project car that I'm working on every day? I drive it out, get it off the curb, and breaks. I have to push it back up onto the curb, onto my driveway, work on it again, and this time I get to the stop sign, and then it breaks again, and I have to push it back. And that's what it feels like, how my body was going. I'm thinking, why am I always asymmetric? Why is this broken on one side, but why is this side working just fine? And Kento pointed out to me nicely that it's just, especially as people who are, as athletes or active people, it's going to happen. It's how the body is, and it's something that we have to, as this video will be, learn how to deal with it properly. So, things as people, I think people try to look at advanced things about injury. They're like, start saying big science words about whatever tendon in their body. When in reality, I feel like people need to see the core basics of things can be wrong even in breathing, walking, crawling, rolling. These things could be the core, and if you can't do something, I feel like, on your foundation correctly, then of course up here, squatting, overhead squatting, lunging, jumping, sprinting, all these things you will be doing also incorrectly because your foundation is built on sand. It's just going to keep shifting around, and you're going to be saying, ow, my knee hurts. Again, I saw Kento for knee pain a long time ago, and that was, I would say, easily chronic, starting even from 2 years ago when I first started powerlifting, always on the left knee, always, it wasn't patellar, but it was quadriceps tendon. That was always hurting. I couldn't pistol squat on it. I always shifted to the right. It always hurt. And some people said, oh, maybe that's just the way your hips track. And I was thinking, no, I feel like something's wrong. And luckily I was lucky enough to meet with someone like Kento who's able to point out, and Ty, both of you guys, were able to point out basic things such as walking and breathing that in the end I feel like were huge factors as to why today I can say that I haven't had knee pain for probably after I saw Kento, and about a month after that, working and doing the proper correctives, I have never had any knee issue since then. All my other issues have stemmed from other
Knock on wood.
Oh yeah. I don't want any more knee pain, because that's quite debilitating. But yeah, and it's interesting how those basic things that seem to have nothing to do with, I guess, athletics actually have almost everything to do with
100%.
Without a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, you guys brought up great points, is most quote-unquote athletes that come about these days, especially in powerlifting, CrossFit, and even Olympic weightlifting, they come from sedentary backgrounds, from just years, even decades of just sitting on their butts all day working. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they want to do advanced movements like squats. As simple as a squat is a very advanced movement. And all of a sudden they want to move into that, but they're just not even mobile. And you guys bring up a great point of learning how to do the basics like breathing, even walking, being able to touch your toes, being able to reach across your chest, whatnot. You need to learn how to do all these basic things, basic movements. You need to know how to learn how to control your body before you learn how to control weight. And now time to transition into the next question. That was a great transition, by the way.
Nice done.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on massages? Recently there's been a rise on Graston, even acupuncture. Right. Yeah. What are your thoughts on these to prevent injuries, to release a lot of the tension that your body has. And even adjustments, chiropractic adjustments. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, you got some good questions going on. I'll
I
just
wrote a
tell you what
script if you want to see.
Oh no, I don't want to see that right now. I'm gonna tell you more one. You got some good questions. Okay, so let's go into Graston and acupuncture first. I love both. I am actually going to be teaching a Graston-like course starting in April.
Mm.
So I do believe in manual therapy. Acupuncture is great stuff. I actually send several amount of my clients to acupuncture because I know like the herbal side and that side of things, along with looking at it from a different perspective, does help. Especially for those that were they really got stuck in the Western medicine side where even though if it was a chronic thing, they treat it with an acute medication, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's very common. Yeah, exactly. It's very common. If it's inflammatory processes, sure, anti-inflammatory, I'm fairly okay with that. But if a person has like chronic anti-inflammatory, like a autoimmune disease, they keep giving anti-inflammatories. And those are like acute way to clear up a chronic thing, and that never works that way.
Right.
But I digress. But when it comes to manual therapy, I'm very, very thankful, and I think it works a lot. But if it comes to guys like you guys with powerlifting, you still need to learn how to load the tissue.
Okay.
So let's say, James, could I use it as an example? Is that all right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say James has a back issue, right? And the back is really tight. There's some kind of, let's say scar tissue is there, whatever. So you do some Graston work or acupuncture or dry needling work, and the tension goes away, or it decreases. However, because his motor planning doesn't really change, because just because you did some hands-on work, it doesn't necessarily mean the motor planning has changed. Meaning, let's say when he touches toes, he doesn't let his back go. He might just tighten up and try to still go down. So unless you actually follow that up with some motor planning, let's say like corrective exercise or loading or anything in the good, anything to go in the good direction, it's likely going to come back. Because evidence has shown that there's no such hands-on work that can actually change the structure of the tissue. It changes the input. The different type of input that you do creates a neurophysiological effect that possibly affects pain or tension of that or that.
So more than actually changing the muscle fibers and getting rid of quote-unquote scar tissue and changing the structure, it's more, you say, neurophysiological. So all
more
basically
so
on the mind.
Yeah. If you don't put it that way, I guess, because it seems like it's crazy. But yeah, it's that signal back and forth that change, or that you bring a different input to the brain. So whatever configures in here gives a different type of output, and the body goes, and the brain goes, oh, I feel less threatened. Let's relax, and then the pain might go, oh, I don't feel as threatened. Pain is less.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's that thought process. For me, sometimes, grass and stuff that really got them like black and blue almost. That's good and bad, I'd say. If you're going for that effect, make sure you know that you're going for that effect. But my type, it doesn't really do that anymore. So it really depends. But I do like manual therapy. For me, a lot of people think that's the cure-all. And for athletes especially, you got to learn how to create a good neural pathway, meaning good motor planning, motor control stuff, following that up. So when you go back to your squat again, you have opposing muscles or support system that doesn't create that tension back again.
Got it. Yeah. I
If
think
that
you
makes
mentioned
sense.
something that's really good. Even with these acute treatments, I'm going to consider acupuncture and Graston and whatnot acute treatments for now.
Yeah.
Even with those, yes, they do get rid of those pains. They may get rid of those pains, and they may get rid of quote-unquote injuries just in general. It'll come back if you don't fix the root cause of those problems, which is bad motor pattern, old actual injuries that happened in the past that you didn't fix, and etc.
Yeah, exactly. Because whenever I see a client, it's really, I always think like, is it a short-term issue that we need to get into or a long-term issue? And more often than not, it's more long-term for me, just because I'm a cash-based physical therapist, and I see it more chronic pain issues.
Right.
But if it's a person that's short-term, and let's say they're pretty good at what they're doing, I will go into manual therapy to kind of calm the system down and then follow it up pretty quickly.
Mm.
But for chronic pain individuals, I try not to do as much manual because it's an anchor that they're going on. And they think I need someone to change it for me instead of changing it inside themselves. And that's a big difference, at least for me. It's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But those are my thoughts on it so far.
Yeah, and we value your opinion. That's why you're here, right?
Sure, thanks. What was the other question? You had a secondary question within that.
Or I just asked you, what are your thoughts on those manual therapies, like Graston, acupuncture, what is it, ART, I believe?
ART, yeah. I like ART. They're all good stuff. I like ART because it's an active release, so you involve the patient when you're doing it. Right? It hurts like hell, but as I'm holding it, the patient actually has to move.
Mm.
So that gives that extra signal to that brain say, oh, I'm moving, and this sensation has to change. When I'm just like massaging here, it feels good, but sometimes it doesn't change motor control.
Right.
Sometimes it does. But when you actually do some movement along with that, sometimes it's a better input depending on the person.
Yeah, I actually like ART a lot better because I'm able to physically know and learn that this is the range of motion that it's supposed to go through.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And like these, let's say scar tissue releases or even Graston, what some of the ultrasound studies that at least I'm hearing and seeing, is that the scar tissue doesn't necessarily change, but the ability for the muscles to slide better apparently improves.
Okay.
And I've seen some ultrasounds that they've done like a pre and post. That seems like the direction it's going right now.
Mm. Okay.
I had I guess this is like an age-old question. Some people might be happy with the answers that I have found on Google, but I'm particularly not very satisfied with the answers. So it would have to be between, when it comes down to, say, an injury, so like my leg.
Sure.
Should you add compression with heat or compression with cold? As I've always found, people are always rushing to throw me an ice pack. They're like, oh, you need to go ice this, you need to go ice that. But I rarely ever hear, other than my mom, who will come rushing in with a heated pad saying, put this on. And I don't have a choice in the world. I could be a sunburn. She's like, you're going to put this heat pad on.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to do that. As far as my knowledge goes, simplified, I guess, I had heard it or read it somewhere that if it's, I guess, not necessarily an injury, but a bit of pain, you can ice it to reduce inflammation and pain for that temporary effect. Where something is more chronic or is actually an injury, you should heat it to promote blood flow to the area to allow the recovery, the body's natural recovery process to happen. But in my opinion, then, I think whether it's not necessarily an injury or not, maybe you should just bite the bullet. If it hurts a bit, I don't know, stop crying, suck it up, and throw a heat pad on it, and allow the body to heal. So that, in my opinion, I would much rather heat something, and if someone said, all right, you're going to deal with 10 times more pain than you are experiencing now, however, within a day you will be healed. As opposed to, you can ice it, and it will take 1 month for you to heal, but you will experience 25% of the pain that you're experiencing right now. I just want to know what your thoughts are on whether it's you're using heat or you're using cold treatment. If one is necessarily better than the other, is one archaic and should be phased out, or are they both the kind of thing where there's a time and place for everything, which I feel like that might be the answer.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered on, it's a great question. You guys got some really great questions this whole time. So the ice and heat thing, I think ice got a pretty big news the past year or last year, probably early last year, because there's some evidence that's talked about ice. It could actually, delay your healing process because you're not letting the inflammation happen. So it doesn't really help at all. So heat is usually better, or just kind of doing compression, light mobilization is usually better, or I don't even know if elevation is still that good anymore, but I think elevation is still in there. So that's what goes in it. But I still think there's a time and place for it. There's a reason why we have hot and cold. And when I used to have people that had, like, if it's too inflamed, I still think you need to control it. But in the beginning, when it's acute care, it's kind of time and place. If I see a person, it's really hot to touch, I might say, hey, can we just compress it a little bit and give a little bit of ice, still keep the inflammation, but not as much, and then mobilize everything. Because if it's too inflamed, sometimes nothing is moving. So maybe compress it a little bit and then let that movement happen. I don't have a great answer to it because I don't use as much heat and ice. But if I had a choice, I would probably go with heat more.
Okay.
Especially with chronic issues.
Yeah.
Especially chronic issues. But a lot of, and as I follow with a lot of people, I think a lot of it comes down to preference as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, especially with pain. As we talk about output, pain being an output, if the person thinks heat or hot is something threatening to them, let's say they had they burnt themselves a long time ago, or they have some emotional issue with fire, right? Maybe putting a heat pack is not good for them.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Maybe someone has a frostbite issue, and when you put ice, it's just not, they get that memory coming out, and that's not good for them.
Yeah. I actually want to touch on that. I feel like that's extremely interesting that, issues or injuries from long, long ago can ingrain memory in your brain. Your brain remembers that and can perceive a similar, stimulus as a threat, even if it's not a threat. So like you said, if they got burned, like touching it, I don't know, I guess someone dropped hot oil on their leg when they were a kid, burns their leg. Now, and say that to me, that person was me. And that happened a long time ago, but now I have this tissue trying to heal, and I enjoy putting just a heat pad on my leg. But say I was the one who got burned in the past, I find it interesting that the body can perceive that as a threat, and that could actually not promote healing, if anything, promote the opposite effect. Because I feel like I'm just like this test dummy for everything physiological and neurological, because when I saw Ty, I went in and we had work because I had my abs were just very underactive. They of all levels, the outer and inner, they just really didn't want to work. Every time he tested it, every way he tested it, no matter what plane, it was just easy for him to push everything away, and I, for the life of me, could be sweating bullets and couldn't stop him. And so we did some work, and he told me he thought it was a little odd that I hadn't made the improvement that he was expecting, but an improvement nonetheless, and thought maybe it just needed some time for everything to settle in, for the changes to set in, and then I could go ahead and start squatting. But then I came back, I think about a month later to him with basically the same issue. Like my abs just aren't working. And this is mainly my fault. I hadn't expressed it to him that in the past I had an appendectomy, so I had my appendix removed. And I wasn't actually the one who told him this. He noticed it himself when I took my shirt off and he was looking, and he said, "Whoa, where are these scars here?" Since I had they didn't slice me open hip to hip. They did the one with like 3 small incisions. Oh, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I had an appendectomy." And he just kind of shakes his head and he says, "This is probably your issue. Your brain is perceiving." Wow. And this is crazy in my opinion.
Yeah, that's.
I was knocked out. I was not awake when they sliced my stomach open to pull out this little useless organ, as far as we know, useless. And so he did some work on it. He did basically. I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to put out false information. But he had like kind of pricked me with a sharp object, so it might be dry needling or some sort of like that. And it was like that. I think it was basically resetting, teaching my brain, hey, there is no threat there anymore. You're fine. Like, everything that's happened is in the past, and try to, I guess, in a way, reprogram my brain to realize that there is no problem there anymore. And sure enough, after he did that work, my abdominal activation was up to where he was expecting, which was basically back to full usage, and that was exactly what happened. And I think that's crazy. And I wasn't even, I guess what blows my mind away is I wasn't even conscious for this to happen. I was knocked out. I did not feel pain. At least I didn't because I wasn't conscious for it. But it was a trauma that happened to my body nonetheless. And as a result, it happened down the road. And I find that pretty interesting that, someone like, I thought that was just information that wasn't even relevant to my issues. I didn't think that me having an appendectomy when I was 15 had anything to do with the fact that I had, pain in my knees. So that I think that's really interesting that, something as simple as if you saw a client, them letting you know that, hey, when I was 18, I accidentally stabbed myself, or like in the hand, or when I was 20, I got into a small accident on my bicycle and twisted my leg funny and this and that. And so to the average person, that might seem like, oh, that's just some stuff that happened in the past. But in reality, it's something that's a real issue that is happening now and can still be affecting you. And all it has to do, generally, especially for, I think, strength athletes, there only needs to be a little bit of issue available, I guess, like you could call it. It's just an arbitrary amount, 1 point of issue. And that 1 point magnified by 600, 700 pounds loaded on you can cause a huge catastrophic injury, which I mean, you can see not so much in powerlifting, you don't see those kind of injuries, but it makes me it sends a shiver down my spine. Olympic weightlifting, when you see someone go for a snatch and you see their elbow bend in, or what you see their something go funky with their shoulder, their knee, and you're just thinking, what? And that might not be from what we're talking about, but I mean, it is a possibility that there is just one small issue, and all it needed were some criteria to be met, and then, hey, put over 200 kilograms above your head, and with all these little steps in line, your elbow is going to bend inward, and you're not going to have a very good time. I did have another question for you about warm-ups, though.
Okay.
So,
yeah, you guys have a great question. Keep bring it on then. Let's see.
So
if I can break.
Yeah, let's see how far we can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I got like 7 minutes, by the way. Just so you know,
okay.
My clients come at 6:30.
Oh, my bad. Okay, so the thing I want to do about warm-ups is I'm notorious for being a bad warm-upper, if that's a thing. I usually, everyone on YouTube watching this, tear me apart. Say I'm working up to, doubles at 500 whatever pounds. Generally, this is how my warm-up goes. I come in, I do a quick barbell complex, and I got this from, actually, credit goes to, I believe, Bryce Lewis from The Strength Athlete. I do some, 10 reps each of Romanian deadlifts to barbell rows to some quick hang cleans, overhead press, good mornings and squats, just to kind of get some movement going on. And then I'll go roll out my back to get all the cracks out. Just feels nice. I don't know if it has any real benefit. And then I get under my bar, whatever movement it is, and I'll go bar, plate, 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 plate. And by plate, I mean 45-pound plate. So I'll go 45 pounds, 135, 225, 315, 405, 495, and then whatever I go. And I've been doing this for as long as I can remember, and I never really, at least in my past, I don't know if I'm just lucky, so this is why I want to ask, is I've never had injury really associated with a lack of a good warm-up. Generally, all my injuries were a result of some sort of imbalance that occurred at some point, which I feel like it could have been maybe a result of bad warm-up, but I've never really gotten any injury, and I recently had read an article about how actually raising the core temperature of the body will change the viscosity of the fluids in your body, which, I mean, is known just in general science. If I heat up a block of fat, it goes from a solid to a liquid. And so I feel like this, I mean, the same effect is happening inside our bodies, and I want to know what your opinion is on my absolute, lackluster warm-up that I do. If that's like something I should be worried about, is that something that people should focus on, or is that something that is very preferential, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when we're younger, a general warm up is fine. But I think as we get older, depending on our history that we have, the warm up becomes pretty individualized.
Yeah.
With the lifters I have here, more often than not, my warm ups or the warm ups they will consist of is the first thing is the weak links that I will give them to make sure whatever they can do is like the things like they have difficulty firing or positioning, they do that. And they do their general warm-up. I think if you are able to neurologically excite some of the muscles or whatever you might be going through some physiological changes by warming up, along with exciting the nervous system a little bit more so it gets prepared to do what you need to do, I'm not sure if there's like a right or wrong way, to be honest.
Okay.
Like sometimes you hear these, even like marathon runners that from Kenya or something, they just like hop around. They just go up on their toes here and there, and they just boom, it goes, and they just start running.
Okay.
So like it depends on how prepared your body is too. Some people may take a little bit longer for them to feel good to be able to do it. Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure if I have a good answer. I don't think it's a right or wrong. As we get older, I think it definitely becomes individual. It can't be as generalized as you think it is. When we're younger, I think so, but not as we get older. Especially if we have history.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you just said. It really depends on the person and the individual itself. Depends on the injuries they've had, how old you are, time of the day, even the weather. It all comes into play because right now I have a garage gym that I train clients in, and for some reason, I know it's SoCal, but it's freezing in the morning. So every time I train clients in the morning, I'll make them run a bit more just so that their core temperature would rise, and then I would make them do their individual warm-ups that I made specifically for them. And of course, I have a general warm-up for everybody that they do. So it really depends because for me, I can't get into the squat position right when I wake up. Certain people can, certain people can't. So I have to take, like DJ, I can't. So what I have to do is take the extra time to warm up, and then I can get into the squat position, and then I can actually start warming up my body for the squat, put some weight on the bar. So I agree. It's very highly individual.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends on what you're going to do to go. Like, let's say for powerlifters, you have to be able to figure out how to make sure you can go into a squat, deadlift, bench pressing. So make sure you're able to prepare yourself for that. But if it's something else, like let's say hockey or tennis or soccer, your different planes are starting to come into play. You're going to start warming up different things. So, warm-ups are important for me for sure. But I'm not sure if there's a good or bad way, or right or wrong way.
Choose whatever you need to do and do whatever you have to do in order to get into the right positions, and then just go from there, basically.
Yeah, if we're going very basic stuff, I probably wouldn't do any passive stretching for you guys. Much more activation or dynamic type of movement, because I don't want you to passively stretch your muscles, because that's not what you need right now. So it's those simple stuff, I would say.
Okay. Well, I mean, if there's nothing else. Well, I mean, even if we did have, I'm sure we could sit here all day and pick your brain.
I mean, I have so many specific questions that I had, but We already talked so much.
Yeah.
You guys have some really good questions. I mean, I could talk pretty long too if I wanted to. This was fun, I must say.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, it's about 6:30 right now. I don't want to keep you or be late to your next client. But
yeah, I mean, if I'm late, it's your fault anyway, so it's good.
Yeah, you can show them, be like, see this guy? You can come over to California and beat me up. But
it's on the net right now, so it's all good.
Yeah,
I've evidence.
So, anyways, we really appreciate you taking time out of your day to let us talk to you about all of this. Hopefully, because I know I have plenty of questions. I know Seyoon does. And maybe, once this goes up, other people have their own questions. We could get together again and do this again. Get some more questions.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
But anyways, thanks again. It was great seeing you after a long time. It's been forever.
I know, it's been a long time. So let me know when you guys are coming to New York City.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you for the first time, Seyoon.
But anyways, thanks again. So everyone, this is Kento. He is a therapist over in New York and New Jersey area, I believe, right?
Yep.
So I'll put his information in the description below. So if you guys are in the area and need some magic healing, just kidding, but do need work done, feel free to go his way and refer me so he can give me money or something.
Yeah.
But anyways, thanks.
We'll think about that, James. We'll think about that.
Yeah.
That was an honor, guys. Thank you so much.
All right.
That was fun.
Take care, guys.
All right. Have a great night, guys.
You too.